My name is Randy Bigley. Joining me right now on the podcast is Todd Boyer from Ohio Mutual Insurance Group. Good morning.
Morning, Randy. Good to be here.
Ohio Mutual, how long has this been around? For a long time, right?
Well, the company has been around since 1901,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been in Bucyrus just a few years shorter than that. The first few years, it didn't have a headquarters, and so the folks who were running it actually met in a hotel down in Columbus for a few years. And then a little after the turn of the century, one of the folks involved, he was a banker in a new bank here in Bucyrus, and he offered to kind of house the headquarters of Ohio Mutual and do the books if they would make the headquarters in Bucyrus. And so the official headquarters was then established here, and first it was located right downtown in one of the older buildings that I think is no longer in existence. Then it was in 1941 we built a new facility that currently houses the Chamber of Commerce and the Crawford Partnership right across from the library and the courthouse. 1969, having outgrown that space, the company moved out to the current location on Hopley Avenue. At that point, it was kind of outside of town. And we had a smaller group of folks there at that time. Since the 1969 building of that facility, it's been expanded twice and renovated twice. So that space continues to house Ohio Mutual, and we hope that it will continue to do so for many years to come.
Excellent. Has the pandemic changed the way you guys do anything there?
Well, I think the pandemic has changed things for everybody. So like most companies, we had to pivot very quickly in March of 2020 when the pandemic first arrived, and everybody was suddenly faced with how do we operate our businesses remotely because we can't be together. Fortunately, we had made a lot of preparations prior to that, and so the nature of our business allows us to be able to pretty much carry on seamlessly with everybody working from their homes.
Wow. Okay.
So our phone systems ring directly into your laptop with a headset. Everybody is able to connect into all the files that they need, and we started, like everybody else, doing a lot of Zoom and Teams meetings. And we have, last summer when the numbers kind of dropped, everybody started kind of creeping back into the office, and we started, holding meetings actually in the office and the like. And then when the numbers went back up, everybody kind of skedaddled back to a more remote setup. We're hoping that coming here in the spring that we'll be able to get folks back into the office, because you lose some things. Even though you can operate well, and we have done very well remotely, you lose some things on culture. You lose that opportunity to have that water cooler conversation, or duck your head into an office and say, hey, can I run something by you, or can you explain this to me, I don't fully understand it, without having to set up a Zoom meeting and put it on a calendar and get everybody's schedules synced. Those informal things really are where a lot of the knowledge transfer takes place. And in our industry, we're in a place where a lot of the more experienced members of our company and our industry are retiring. So that knowledge transfer is more important than ever as we're trying to get a new generation of people in the insurance industry up to speed so they can continue to carry on.
Wow. And we have that here where we can work from home a lot, but you lose that personal connection. It just seems, it's weird. Yeah, I don't know if I mean, it's kind of neat being able to work from home, but you do lose that personal connection with people.
You really do. And we have a few people that they don't have the opportunity to work from home. They're doing some things like working in our mailroom or taking care of the facilities, so they're going to be there all the time. But everybody else has the ability to come and go as their workflow requires. So I work remote several days a week, but I'm in Bucyrus today because I needed to do this little conversation with you, so I planned my day around things that I need to do in Bucyrus. And a lot of folks are doing that.
On the news you hear about the supply chain issues and stuff, but I didn't realize that affects the auto insurance too, doesn't it?
It sure does. And in fact, it more than just auto insurance, it also impacts pretty much every kind of insurance that Ohio Mutual offers. If you think about it, the supply chain issues create delays in being able to get parts or materials. If you have a tree fall in your garage, or if you have an automobile accident, those parts are taking longer and longer to be able to get into the hands of the folks who can actually fix a house or repair a car. And so there's some things that you might not think are actually taking place. For instance, if your car is in the body shop, you have a rental car that, according to your policy, gives you a rental car coverage for a certain number of days. Well, the number of days that it's taking to get cars repaired has increased. The average has gone up by 4 days just over the last year,
Oh, I believe
because
it,
those
yeah.
parts are harder to come by. So a lot of people are exhausting the rental coverage that they have, and so then every day after that, they're on the hook for the cost of that rental car themselves. So we're paying out the maximum that we are obligated to under the insurance contract, and so that creates some uncomfortable conversations. It creates some financial difficulty for people. So the supply chain issues are impacting everybody, and our industry is no exception.
Took me 8 days to get tires. I ordered tires for my car. It took me over 8 days before they even came in.
Yep.
That's crazy,
And
but that's the way, yeah.
it's just about everything. Yeah.
Now inflation, does that impact you guys much?
Well, we're looking at a maybe hyper is maybe an overstatement, but it's the highest inflation environment we've had in about 40 years. And if you think about that, that's a cost that impacts everything as well. The costs for those parts for your car, the costs for repairing your home, all those things increase when inflation is going up. It increases all of those. And as a result, the cost to provide you insurance for those things is going to increase as well. So when inflation is on the upswing like it is currently, not only are the goods and services and then the groceries and the things that you're spending money directly for, the cost for those go up, but also those indirect costs, like for insurance, are going to go up as well. So everybody has a feature in their homeowner's policy. It's called Value Up. And essentially, it's a way to make sure that the amount of coverage you have to take care of the repairs that you're contracted for under your insurance contract, that you have enough coverage. Because the last thing you want to do is find yourself where you have a coverage limit, but the cost to repair something is more than that limit.
Yeah.
So that causes the amount of insurance that you have to buy to go up a little bit at a time. We want to keep pace with inflation, but when it's in such a condition as we are right now, those costs are going up dramatically. And so people are a little surprised sometimes when they open up their renewal for their insurance policy and they see that, my goodness, my cost has gone up, I didn't have any claims, why is it going up? Well, it's because the environment that we're in broadly impacts your individual coverage in that way.
Yeah, how about weather? Does weather affect it?
Weather, yeah, it sure does. And one of the things that there's a category of claims that we have in the insurance industry that we call CATs, or it's short for catastrophes. And then, it's when you have a hurricane or a big windstorm or a tornado, those kind of big, lots of losses in a very narrow period of time. The number of those is increasing. And a lot of those take place in places where there are concentrations of population. If you think about it, a lot of people like to live on the coast. Well, coastal areas are prone to hurricane losses. A lot of people like to live in certain areas of the country that are prone to tornadoes. So when you have high concentrations of population in areas where the weather is becoming a little more volatile, and depending upon what you think may be causing that is kind of immaterial, it's happening. So that creates a much higher risk for the companies that are insuring the properties of those customers. And so that means that those costs then get baked into your insurance policy on an individual basis. So concentrated population, areas where there's going to be loss, there's just that's a bad recipe for increased costs for people. And if you even look at the maps that show the areas where tornadoes are frequently seen, they call it Tornado Alley, and everybody knows kind of that's where Dorothy and Toto kind of got hit with the tornado in The Wizard of Oz. That Tornado Alley seems to be shifting south and east to a different area. So the people who are buying insurance for properties in that area are going to see increased cost because there's increased risk to those kinds of storms that they didn't have before.
Yeah, the weather changes, doesn't it? The earth changes all the time.
It does, yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and our industry, the key
Yeah.
thing we have to pay attention to in the insurance industry is weather. That's the number one thing that creates risk for us and loss for us. It's one of the reasons why Ohio Mutual changed from being just a single state insurance company to writing now in 7 states.
Wow.
Because that spreads our risk across a larger geographic area. So there's not likely going to be a storm that's going to impact both Ohio and Maine. So you want to, as a company, strategically be in areas where you don't have the same weather patterns. So that allows you to be able to continue to collect premiums from those customers and then be able to hold those for when you have claims. And then it allows you then to not have all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, in terms of if you're very concentrated in the area that you're covering, one storm can really be devastating. And we want to make sure that we have enough resources financially to make all of our customers whole when that weather event does occur.
Sure. Employment trends, does that affect you guys too?
Well, it absolutely does. We have, it affects us well at the company very personally, in that we got a lot of folks who are retiring, and so the experience and the knowledge is going out the door with those folks, and we're working very hard to stay ahead of that trend. There's some big gaps in the number of jobs just in our industry that need to be filled, and in Ohio, we started an effort a few years ago with a lot of companies coming together to increase the number of insurance programs that are available at Ohio universities and colleges, and we have increased the number of internships and scholarships because we want to attract people to our industry. It's very stable employment, it pays well, it's kind of recession, inflation proof in terms of the employment side of it. So it's a good job. We don't have a lot of people that leave. Our turnover is very, very low. So once people get into the industry, they find that there are a lot of things they like about being able to work in it. So it certainly is affecting us at that level, but then it also impacts us in that it creates additional risk for us, because if you think about it, part of the supply chain issues that are happening is because there are fewer seasoned drivers who have CDLs who can drive a truck to be able to get those goods and services to where they need to go. So sometimes you're seeing less experienced or less qualified people being hired for those jobs. And what happens when you have less qualified or less experienced people on the road or doing other high-risk jobs? You're going to see more losses. There's going to be more accidents just because people don't have the experience to be able to avoid them. Those increased numbers of accidents and losses are going to turn into higher costs for insurance customers and the companies that represent them. In addition, you've got understaffed operations that can have more risks and loss as well. You think a well-stocked cupboard of seasoned employees, you're likely to have people who are able to kind of see problems before they happen. Somebody who doesn't have as much experience, and it doesn't have to be a truck driver or somebody operating heavy machinery, it can be in almost any industry. Lack of experience and underqualified or less qualified or experienced people are likely going to miss those opportunities to prevent accidents and prevent claims, which then increases cost.
Now, Ohio Mutual Insurance Group, you guys are now a mutual holding company, correct? What's that mean?
Yeah, so this is something that the state of Ohio created this category, and allows us to do something pretty neat. So if you trace the history of Ohio Mutual back many years, an insurance started after the Civil War, really, where the state legislature said, look, we realize that it's getting hard. You can't buy insurance because the East Coast companies won't sell it to the frontier in Ohio because there's no roads. If your house catches on fire, it's going to be an hour and a half before we can get the buggy and the horse and the bucket of water down the dirt lane, and your house is going to be burned to the ground.
Sure.
So why would we insure you? So the legislature allowed companies to be able to form mutual protective associations of 10 people or more.
Okay.
And it was a kind of a mutual, hey, if your barn catches on fire, I'm going to come over and I'm going to help you put it out, and I'm going to help you rebuild it, just like the Amish many times do today.
Right.
But if you suffer a loss, me and everybody else who's in this association with you, we're going to share the cost to put your barn back where it was before that fire or before that windstorm. And so in Ohio, there's a history, very rich history of what we call county mutuals. And these mutual protective organizations started taking care of just kind of their friends and neighbors on a very rural, very narrow geographic space. Sometimes these organizations only covered like a single county. And then over the years, at one point there were 135 of those all over the state.
Wow. Yeah.
And Ohio Mutual helped provide some insurance that kind of got bolted to what they were offering. So one company would offer fire insurance, the other would offer wind, and then that became a full package of coverage. So Ohio Mutual has been very involved over the years in partnering with these very small mutuals. Now over the past couple decades, a lot of those mutuals have been merging. It's been harder to find people to serve on the boards, to operate those companies. It's very costly to keep up with the technology needs of even a small company. And so the resources that require sometimes makes it necessary for those smaller companies to kind of consolidate. And so what happens then is that those companies then kind of lose their identity, but they kind of merge into other groups. And for a while, they would merge into Ohio Mutual. After the early 2000s, we started encouraging those companies to merge with each other. So through all the history of Ohio Mutual, we kind of ended up with a large portion of our customers who were mutual company customers, and those mutual customers essentially are owners of the company. If you are a mutual insurance company customer, you have an ownership share of that company.
Okay.
And then there was also a portion of our customers that came under the Ohio Mutual umbrella as a stock company customer. Mm-hmm. Now, the stock company is owned by the stockholders. So those people don't have the ability and the same privileges as the mutual policyholders do. Mutual policyholders can vote for the board of directors, and they have kind of a different status compared to somebody who's just a customer of a stock company. Mm-hmm. Think about it, a stock company is beholden to its stock owners. They're trying to generate profit for the stock owners. They tend to think differently than a company that is owned by the people that it is serving. So we wanted to come up with a way to get all of our customers in that mutual structure so that they're all mutual policyholders. And that way all of our customers are on the same level playing field. And so Ohio changed the law a few years ago, allowed companies to form a mutual structure so that a mutual holding company kind of sits on top of all of the companies that we already had, and kind of then allows from that mutual at top level company those mutual benefits to kind of cascade down to all of our customers, whether we achieved them through our stock company or whether we achieved them through the historically mutual company. And so what we did is had to go through a process with the state and get it approved by the State Department of Insurance and the Attorney General, and then we had to put it to a vote of our mutual policyholders who overwhelmingly approved it. And then over the course of all of last year, as all of those policies renewed for customers that were not yet policyholders under the mutual structure, they renewed as mutual policyholders. And so on December 31st, 2021, we renewed our last policy, and all of our customers now are mutual policyholders.
Hey, talk about the book, Down to Earth.
Yeah, so I hope that folks who are listening have had a chance to be aware that this book is available. So the Bicentennial Committee here in Bucyrus put together some clippings of, and I forget the name of the author now, but a local author, Jim Torres or something like that, who wrote an article, wrote a column in the local paper here for years, kind of outlining the history of the area. And they, in order to be able to celebrate the bicentennial, they're reprinting all of those into 3 volumes called Down to Earth. And each one of those volumes is sponsored by somebody or an organization who's kind of helping to underwrite the cost of that. And Ohio Mutual is underwriting one of those volumes. Wow. So that gives us a few pages just to kind of tell the Ohio Mutual history story. And when we had that opportunity presented to us, it's like, you know what, we need to be able to get a comprehensive history of our company together. And a few years ago, when the company in 2001 celebrated its 100th anniversary, there was an effort to kind of pull some history together. You're celebrating 100 years of being in business, and there was a big gala down in Columbus at the convention center and a lot of celebration. But there's been other pieces of history that didn't kind of make it into that effort, so we kind of reinvigorated, we kind of started where that effort left off. And I had the opportunity to work with Tom Holtzhaus, who was for years at Ohio Mutual and kind of the unofficial historian of the company. And then when Tom retired, all of those boxes that he had collected and hid under his desk became mine, and I kind of assumed that role. And so Tom and I worked together to kind of fill in some gaps and create a little more comprehensive history of the company. And then that's going to be then published in one of the volumes that are being offered through the Bicentennial Committee. And I understand they're going to be available here just within a few weeks.
Yeah, pretty soon, yeah, real soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Todd, for coming in. I learned a lot about Ohio Mutual.
Yeah.
Just today, about the trends and stuff. These are stuff I don't even think about when you think about insurance.
Yeah, a lot of it is very indirect and it's kind of behind the scenes. But if you spend a minute or two thinking about it, it all makes sense. So we're happy to have these kind of conversations anytime, Randy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.